Important notice before the video, guys. My Discord server is now online and you're ready to join. The first 3 people to apply for an account takeover on the Discord will get a free account takeover. The first 10 people that join the Discord will get the VIP role. And yeah, just exciting news. There's big plans coming up for the future, such as streaming, such as community summons, account takeovers, and more to come. So make sure to join the Discord and see you there and enjoy the video. Peace. What's up, guys? Ronaldo here, and today I want to take a quicker look at the top 5 definite late game epic heroes. And as you already can see, I'm not here alone today. I am here with the great Fastidious.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Ronaldo. I love epics, so let's get into it.
All right, now before we go into the list itself, let's quickly establish the rules first for this list. So as we just mentioned before, it's the end game list. So really just end game viability. That means units that really don't get outclassed by some legendaries. And we define end game by stage 21 of the gear rates, Nightmare Void Rift, and trying to reach 50k blood on the guild boss. And also these epics will be rated at A5. So these are basically the rules, our definition of the end game. And why don't you head off and start off with your number 5 as it is?
Sure thing. My number 5, I think, is going to be a little controversial. Not for them being in the top 5. I think everyone would put this here in the top 5, but the fact that I'm rating him as low as number 5, I'm going to go with Olog. So Olog is a Northerner defender. I presume he's on your list, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But it's good that you have him at number 5 because I also have some spice ready. You know, I also have some controversial picks
You
ready. Otherwise, it would be a bit boring, right?
you always bring the spice. So with Olog, obviously incredible tank, has a claim to be the best tank in the game. I think he's probably the second best tank in the game, maybe third, depending on how you look at it. Undeniably, he's the best epic tank in the game. He's very, very plug and play. He's very easy to build, easy to use. His auto here, his auto passive Silver Shield, this goes down to 10 seconds. Oh, they actually officially changed the tooltip. It goes down to 11 seconds now. It used to say -2 seconds, but then go to 11 seconds. So I guess they adjusted that. But this is incredibly powerful. You're going to want to skill this out. The ultimate nearly does not matter. You almost never use it. And of course, his basic attack is just a random attack. But yeah, he's got huge shields. He has pretty solid base stats, and he's shockingly easy to use. Kind of a staple for clearing a lot of that mid and late game content. However, because we are talking end game, I do like his awakenings. I'm not blown away by them. I can get your thoughts on that quickly. But there's so many good tanks, and I do find them pretty interchangeable. And I would say that from my studies, they all have pretty decent drop rates. I think lots of people will have a Regulus or a Brokir or even a King Hearts. Orum's entering the game now. He's pretty solid. You know, Baron's amazing. Livian's amazing. So even though Olog might be better than a lot of the ones I named, for most content, especially when you're end game and you have that great late and end game gear, I think Olog isn't that unique. So of course I think he had to make my list, but that's my reasoning for why he's down at number 5.
So basically, he's interchangeable is what you're saying, right? He is strong, but there's also other options which tank his value a bit.
For perspective, right? People love Olog. He's, like I said, I think he's super plug and play, and he's just so mindless and easy to use. And it might surprise people, but anyone that's watched my Void Rift content, I very much prefer Regulus to Olog, which maybe doesn't sound like a hot take because Regulus is a legendary, but Regulus is considered by some to be a bad legendary. I like him more than Olog for a lot of Nightmare Void Rift. And that's kind of
Definitely
what we're focusing on.
Definitely hot take.
Yeah.
All right, so my 5th place is someone who's also on your list, right? And that is Idril. And Idril is at my 5th place simply because she is a legendary disguised as an epic, basically. So she is amazing. She's pretty much the best DPS unit out of all the epic units in the game. And that comes down mainly to her being able to reach the entire field, which enables her to be so valuable in so many different content. areas of content, such as gear rate 3, where she is one of the best, if not the best, unit for the entire thing, which is possibly one of the most important pieces of content. And usually DPS characters get outpaced, outmatched by some legendaries, right? Let's say if you put her head to head against Silas in a DPS check against the boss, then she loses out. But that's not what she's there for. She has other things that Silas doesn't have. She has not only the DPS, but also other things. And this is why she doesn't suffer like, let's say, a Greed who suffers from Comet's existence, right? Comet just puts Greed in the dumpster, whereas Idril just has a different role as Silas in many pieces of content, right?
Yeah, for sure. I won't spoil it. You guys have to stick around till the end. But I have her a lot higher than this. So people will see that later on. But yeah, I've agreed with everything you said. I guess for me, what she does as a DPS hitting everywhere on the map, and we are talking at A5, the fact that this ultimate kind of lasts feels sometimes, especially in like Gear Raid 3, like forever, because she keeps getting 3 seconds every kill. I find her invaluable. Like you said, I use her in a few different places, but mainly Gear Raid 3 is like the ultimate, late game, end game gear dungeon. And she is, I literally would not be able to do 321, which I probably wouldn't have even been able to do 320 at this point, even with how I have an A1 Silas, I have a Virna Bond, I have very good gear now. I still wouldn't be able to do it without her. So that's why I just value her so immensely.
For sure. And I think I already continue with my fourth place.
Please.
And it is a healer. Spoilers, yours is a healer too, right?
It is,
but a
yeah.
different one.
Yeah.
And mine will be Hollow. My fourth place will be Hollow. She will have some controversy between why she's not third, because my third place is where the spice comes in. Now, Hollow for me just is the best healer out of the epics for sure, because she is just so versatile and so late game viable, because you can use her in stage 21 gear rate 1, 2, 3, guild boss, and void rift. Basically, her main purposes will be in guild boss, gear rate 1, and also somewhat in gear rate 3. That's where she really shines. Whereas in gear rate 2, you have to itemize some HP, but simply because she is so meta with these rage region comps for gear rate 1 or guild boss, I really value her a lot, and she's just amazing. Also her range.
Yeah, she's got that vortex range. That's how I brand that range. The super wide range. Gwendolyn is going to have that range too for anyone that's going to go for her. Yeah, she's my number 3. I'll just say that right now. For everything you said, that's why I put her ahead of my number 4, who I can tell you is going to be Vortex, which I know was an honorable mention for you, I believe, but did not make your final list. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, so the reason I love Vortex so much and the reason I needed to get on this top 5, I feel like people have maybe started undervaluing him. We got Hollow on that 10x. Who was on that 10x? I can't remember. Oh, the Constance Allura 10x. A lot of people went crazy because Constance and Allura are great. Legendary heroes. Hollow is on it. And that's when I got my Hollow finally. I got her after like well over 2,000 summons. And she's, like you said, she fits into all content. However, Vortex, that's the namesake for the Vortex range. The shields, the size, if people don't realize this, when it comes to healing multipliers, that is not disclosed in the game, right? Restores HP based on the target and the caster's max HP, and then it scales off of a heal effect and then healing multiplier. But we don't know what those healing multipliers are. Undeniably, as a single target healer, HP based Vortex, just from testing, has maybe, definitely, I think of the epics, the highest healing multiplier innately in the game. His healings are huge, which allows him to do tons of excess healing, which allows for crazy shields. And shields are shockingly OP in all content, but especially late and end game content, like Gear Raid 221, the things you can do with Vortex. I will say, when you have really good gear, he's interchangeable, but early on, he's really not. And then certainly for Nightmare Void Rift, he fits into 75% of my teams. I've cleared it like 4 or 5 times now. Started doing it like a month and a half ago, maybe. And Vortex, even with Hollow, even with Elwyn now, I'm still using Vortex all the time because you need the tankiness that shields provide. And I love him. And he's the second or third highest drop rate of any epic in the game. So getting him A5 is really, really easy. At A5, the healing ripple shields will now be it's like a 1.1x multiplier. They're gonna be 10% more potent, better rage regen auto, get the ult up faster, better healing multipliers to platform units. He's got plus 1200 HP, and then here he gets random shields out, and that's on top of random shields coming from your Northerner lords and so on and so on. I freaking love this guy. He had to be in my top 10. That's my spiel.
Yeah, and he also like he's quite future proof, especially now with content coming out that is harder, that requires you to have some more survivability, being it through damage reduction or having these excess shields that he provides. And also with the introduction of Elder, with Ardea, and the strength of the Norner faction really pumping up, he also became even stronger than he initially already was, right?
Absolutely, and the shields are so. I mean, his heals are so good, but shields are so strong in this game that like I have Ardia now, right? Well, we might be talking about her in another video really soon. But you can really don't have to worry about even one drop of tankiness on her if you run her with a vortex or something like that. Ardia is maybe a unique case, but if you think of something like Falcia, right? She's getting bonus damage from being shielded. No one's going to do it better than vortex, and then I guess Gwendolyn's coming very soon. But he just kind of is. It'd be really hard not to use him unless you just had truly all the legendaries, all the cracked out heroes, the best gear, and even still, I think people would find places to use him. I think I definitely would. So I really love him.
Definitely, definitely. If you wouldn't have put him in the list, he would definitely be in the honorable mentions. And now you want to talk some additional stuff about Horlo, or should we just move on
Yeah,
to
I can
my
talk about
number
it
three?
for 30 seconds. Yeah, the reason
Mhm.
I put her above Vortex is because she is invaluable. She's got that Vortex range, and you can use her currently in every single key piece of endgame content, right? You can use her in Guild Boss, Nightmare 4, 50 plus. People do it all the time. For a lot of stuff, she can even be better than Elowen. You can use her in literally all three gear raids. I think gear raid 1 is probably the hardest gear raid endgame dungeon. I finally just beat it. I beat it like 3 weeks after I beat the other two, 3 or 4 weeks. So that's how much harder it was for my account. She is S tier for that. And then we have Codex coming. She's going to be amazing in Codex. The list kind of goes on and on with her. So that's why she had to get that number 3 spot for me. But let's talk about your number 3 because I was so close to putting her in my top 5.
So yeah, my number 3 is Laurel, and she is there for one job and one job only, to put her in and then put her out. That's what she does, and that's all she does. And that's all she needs, basically, because there's not one other unit that can do what she does. Not one unit that can replace her. She's irreplaceable in that aspect, and she is so valuable in so many different pieces of content due to that 50% rage that you can actually get from her, just putting her in and putting her out. And just as a quick mention for why number 3 and where you can everywhere use her, right? So I used her in Gear Raid 1, I used her in Gear Raid 2, I used her in Gear Raid 3. In all of the Stage 21s, I used Laurel, and I wouldn't have done any of these without her. This already shows how valuable she is, especially if you have Comet, who has a high rage cap. He will profit a lot as well, and everyone else as well. And then now she is even meta in Guild Boss. She's even meta. It came so far that she is now a staple for the meta teams in the Guild Boss to reach that 50k blood. She's part of my team to get there. I'm not yet there to the 50k, but I'm
What are you
getting
at?
there. Around 35k.
It's really good though. You can see
Yeah,
Laurel,
and
Laurel, Laurel, Laurel.
she may not be that good for the Void Rift, but in terms of gear rates, in terms of guild boss, she is just in the end game. No legendary can do what she does, and she's just amazing.
Yeah, for me, it was very hard not to put her on the list. She would have, if it was a top 6, she would have been number 6. I really like her, and I guess I'm trying to think why I didn't put her there. I guess just because you technically don't need her. I used her for Gear Aid 1, Gear Aid 3. I didn't need her for Gear Aid 2. Um, and I don't use her in Guild Boss. I certainly could. However, I think if we're talking about straight up end game, I do think you reach a point where she's a plus, but not a necessity. The way I think these other guys for certain pieces of content might be, but I mean, you could put her as high as 2. I could have seen her on the list, and I wouldn't have been surprised. So I think it's a great call. If I can point out one thing that I think is slept on with Laurel, and this helped me a ton to beat 321, is she's like the rage mage, right? You put her down, you pick her up. However, this damage increase, it goes to 20%. All you have to do, and took me a second to figure it out, but so as long as you trigger an ult of an ally when she's there, she's going to give this big damage increase. It's 10 seconds, 20%, and then you can pick her up after, and the buff doesn't go away. It will still last that full 10 seconds, so you can just time it out really nice, and that's how I was able to get enough damage out of my Idril to successfully do 321. So I really like her for that ability too. I think it's a great shout. She deserves to be on the list. I'm happy you did it, so I don't have to feel bad that she didn't make mine.
Yeah, and also about her use case, you can actually already take her out while your ultimate is still going, and they will just immediately have that 50% rage.
Yes,
So you don't have
true.
to wait.
I think some people think you're not going to start building rage again until the ultimate's over. It's not how it works in this game.
Mhm,
You just don't
mhm.
see it yet till the ultimate's over.
Exactly.
Sweet.
And now my number 2, it already has been mentioned by you, but my number 2 is Oleg. Maybe he's so much higher here because I don't have that many other tanks. And I was a bit torn between Oleg because, like you said, he has some legendary replacements, right? The thing for me, though, is that he is still just a staple. He's just a staple. And for me, I don't have, like in most cases, you need 2 tanks. You need a double front line in many pieces of content. And that's where he shines. Like in the Gear 8 2, he's amazing. He can even in stage 19 tank the roar from the boss. He can tank that 150% damage roar with his shield. Easy. Done. And then he just tanks everything away. He's my strongest tank in the Void Rift. And this is where he made the difference, is because not only is he so good in all of the tanking in the Gear 8 2 or even in Gear 8 3, you can use him, but he also is able to be just so good for Void Rift. And I don't have a replacement for him. I have other tanks that cannot slightly tank as much as he does. And he doesn't even need a healer often. He just stands there, unfazed. He just stands there and he's just an immovable object. So for me, I think other than Broke here, there's not really a tank that can keep up with his tankiness. And for me, he's number 2.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he obviously made my list. I'll just quickly show this artifact if people happen to sleep on it because it's a legendary. This is just another way he doesn't need healing. So if you max this out like I did, it's going to be 15% HP every time his shield pops off. So he stays pretty full healed unless the damage is crazy. It's even 10% at base promotion. So works really well. I guess, yeah, the reason I put him lower is because, like, I do feel like from what I've seen in the study I'm conducting for anyone that doesn't know on legendary drop rates, Brokier has a fairly high pull rate. Regulus has a super high pull rate. I actually do think both those heroes are better for most Nightmare Void Rift content. I have the luxury of having both. Now that I pulled Brokier like a month or 2 ago, but I finally got him full promo, especially when you have him at A1. He's crazy. And I think by endgame, a lot of people will have that. So I actually Olug's dropped out of like all my teams now in Nightmare Void Rift. But I totally get it. Just I was trying to think strictly end game, and I think it's likely that a lot of people might be in the situation I'm in. But he's tremendous. He's tremendous. He's a top 2 or 3 tank without a doubt.
And then what's your number 2?
My number 2 is your number 1, I presume. My number
Who
2
is
is
it?
gonna be Dolores.
Oh, what a surprise.
Yeah. So that by process of elimination, people can figure out my number 1 is Idril, which will explain briefly after. But if we go to Dolores, I really love her. I think she's actually super easy to build once you start figuring her out. It's pretty easy to get her eventually late to end game in an Invig set and get her over 12k 12k attack, which I think is like what people should shoot for. You run her in that formerly known as Ancestral Teachings, Keen Wisdom. Make sure she's Awaken level 1. We're obviously talking about Awaken level 5 here. Personally, I did Soulstone her just to get Awaken 5, and I really suggest it, that 80% chance to get an extra 33% boost, or extra 300 cost, which I think comes out to 33%, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that. Yes, an extra 1/3 boost upon the ult previously ending. It's huge. She technically can fit into every single piece of content in the game. The reason I didn't put her number 2 is because now with constants in the game, and with how easy I do think once you get deeper into the game, the stage 19 gear raids become, and you do not need her for that. Even without constants, you can do all of that with no constants, no Dolores, and then you'll still get. I mean, the difference in gear, though it is a difference, is not so significant between 19s and 21s, at least from what I've seen, that it justifies putting her above my number 1 when I really don't use her very much in Nightmare Void Rift, if I'm being honest. Once you reach Nightmare Void Rift, you've got pretty good gear. I use her maybe 10% of the time or something. And I do have the luxury of having constants, so I use her even less. And now I probably, if I would go back in time with the roster I have now, or if they added like gear raid 22s to each one, I don't think I'd necessarily use her. So yes, it's maybe a slightly hot take. I still think she's tremendous. She's my number 2. Don't get me wrong. Her 60% inspiration once you have her A1 is ridiculous. I just think when you're actually at endgame and you actually have that gear, she's not going to be as insanely vital. You know, still insanely vital. She's number 2, but not insanely vital. You know, or not to that level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, for me, like you said, she is my number 1, because I actually believe she is vital, just not for the Void Rift. I don't think you can beat any of the stages 21 without her at the moment, because of how defense works. You just don't get through the defense even with constants. You can get maybe through stage gear rate 2 with the constants, but the buff that Laurel provides is a lot higher, Dolores, than constants. And not only that, she also has a way higher uptime on her ultimate than a constants. So, which is why she's also being used everywhere in a guild boss team, not unlike constants. And on top of having a higher attack buff, having a higher uptime on her attack buff than constants, she is only 5 cost.
Yeah.
5
For sure.
cost. And that's just turbo broken for many pieces of content. It helps you tremendously. Like, it's just for the Gear 3, you struggle at the beginning with the placements. And to place her down, you actually, I believe you need her for Gear 3 because Constance is too high cost. And without Dolores buff, Idril won't be able to get through the defense of the enemies on the right-hand side. Then for Gear 1, she is a necessity in stage 21. For Guild Boss, she is a necessity. And also for Gear 2, she just makes your life a lot easier. Maybe there's Constance is still enough, but she is the legendary version of Constance, basically, and not the other way around. And yeah, the thing you already mentioned, where she isn't really that viable, is in the Void Rift, also because you only have these 8 slots. Like you really have these few units that you need to place. You need some DPS, you need some defenders, you need some healers. But other than that, she is in the end game for stage 21 unmatched, pretty much.
Yeah, I think, to be very clear, I think she's insanely valuable. Like I said, I just don't think she's as insanely valuable as she once was now with the presence of Constance, because now there's someone else that can do what she can do. Her inspiration is slightly better, but if you actually do the math, Constance at 45%, Dolores is at 60%, and Constance has fairly significantly higher base attack, so it is comparable. You're totally right about the uptime. You were totally right about the cost. However, again, I think with late game stuff, you're probably going to have a really good balance. And from what I've done in my testing, it totally works. But we're really nitpicking, right? It's like top 2.
Yeah, of course.
I
Also,
want, I
Arena,
want,
she's good, by the way.
for sure, yeah. I just want to make sure viewers don't think I don't think Dolores is good. I think she's
No,
cracked
no, I
beyond
mean,
belief.
she's level 2. She's still second place. And also for the viewers, just to not get confused, like all these 5 heroes are creme de la creme,
Yes.
top of their game, you know. You could make an argument for any of them to be second or fifth place, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I will say, if we go to my number 1, the reason I debated whether to put Idril or Dolores number 1. The reason I went Idril is because what she can do, literally no one else can do. And when I think about these rankings and I think specifically about the end game, technically, save for Guild Boss, I think both of us are done, right? We've maxed everything out. Uh, Guild Boss is more just about farming the right gear and waiting, maybe getting that one last hero or something. And when I evaluate these heroes, Idril's still doing something. If they added Gear Aid 22s, I think the one thing I would not be able to do without with that one hero I couldn't sub out from any team would be Idril from Gear Aid 3. If I kept farming gear and this, that, and the other, if I didn't have her in A5 Idril, I do not think I could physically do it. And I do think Gear Aid 3 is the most important piece of content in the game. Guild Boss is
Agreed,
probably
yeah.
that and Nightmare Void Rift, I think, are the two most important pieces of content. And just on that alone, and I do use her in Nightmare Void Rift as well. Not a ton, but I do use her, and I could use her even more if I wanted to. Just that, for anyone that has never seen it, when she's deployed, if you click on her, when her ult's up, you'll see it's every single square on the map is red. And just that ability that no legendary has, no one else has, is so tremendously unique. And the fact that she really synergizes so well with both her factions, I just think for me, she had to be number one. Maybe a spicy take, but I had to have her number one. And I will say the other thing is when I think endgame, I think of, well, the game always continues, right? And we get things like Immortal Codex, we'll get another guild boss, we'll get new versions of Void Rift, so on and so on. So I try to theory craft in my head or predict what's going to come. And she's the kind of hero that I think never wouldn't be relevant. You know, the only way they could power creep her is by introducing like a legendary with her skill. With that unlimited range skill.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my justification. Uh, I just to make it beautifully clear.
No, it's a good, and especially the last part you said, right, about the future content, because at the moment it's really these enemies just have such high defenses that attack is king. It's
Yes.
just attack is king. But there could be a high chance that in future content they will, at least in every gacha game, there is 100% chance, actually, not a high chance, they will introduce content to nerf specific heroes on purpose,
Yeah.
such as maybe a Dolores. They will put in some lower defense, high HP, for example, to nerf Dolores value, or they will put in something that gets rid of shields to nerf Oleg. Something like that will
Yes.
come in the future. That's also a reason why I could also see why you put her not at first place, right?
Yeah. I just think I don't know, as my gear gets better and better, I'm just seeing how even though I still can and often still do use Dolores, you can just kind of jump ahead. Like if I look at someone like Ray from Dragon Slayer's account and stuff, I see the attacks he's building on his heroes playing the same game we're all
Mm,
playing. And you can just see
mm,
I've only been playing the game for 4 months, I can in
yeah,
eight
that's true.
months my gear I really think the kind of builds I'll accidentally get on my Comet when I'm going for crit builds and then all of a sudden he has 16 or 17k attack, and my gear's not even that good. I just can see, there's no hero in the game or that I've seen. There's no enemy that you need 20k attack to defeat. You know,
Mm,
so I just as we get better and better gear with more OP substats, I just think the need for that crazy inspiration is going to go down and down. You might need some inspiration, but I think it's going to be less and less. And I just have to say with Constance because she's going to get honorable mention when we do our legendary version of this. She's so good at other things besides that. She actually is tanky and she actually is a good healer. Uh, so that's I guess I'm a little blinded by that. But to reiterate, I freaking love Dolores. I just also love Constance, and maybe I'm slightly outgrown Dolores. I still use her in tons of content. Don't get me wrong.
yeah, perfect. I think that wraps it up. You have any other mentions you want to say?
Yeah, I guess if I had to pick one like top honorable mention, I had Laurel on my list. We obviously covered, but the other one would
Mm-hmm.
have to be Maul. The reason he didn't make my top five is I do think he's more of like a late game superstar than an end game superstar, but he is like kind of a jack of all trades and a master of a lot of trades. I just think
Mm-hmm.
his damage is legit in a lot of late game content. The debuffs are legit. The crowd control is legit. When you get him A5, which is what we're discussing, he goes down to 17 cost, which is by far the cheapest AoE piercing damage you'll get in the game. Uh, Yeah, he didn't make my list, but he does have to get a shout. I feel like people sleep on him all of a sudden, which is crazy. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. More what you should not forget about him, what makes him actually viable still in these stages, endgame stages, is that he also has a defense reduction, right?
Yeah.
So he actually gets through that defense even without having insane amount of
There's another
attack.
thing, right? It's like Maul has AoE decreased defense. That's what I was talking about when I mentioned debuffs. I could totally see them adding a new legendary hero that puts out like a 25% AoE. What if they did a legendary version of Maul, something like that? And
Hmm.
then we don't need inspiration as much. So there's other ways it could be worked in and out. So yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, Maul, the defense down, the crazy slows and freezes from his awakenings. Probably the best awakenings of any epic in the game. Maybe him or Dolores. And then the damage is legit. So pretty crazy
Hmm.
stuff.
Then
Let's talk about yours.
my honorable mention will be I, who I actually believe also has insane, even maybe even better awakenings, to be honest, because
Good. Yeah,
if you don't know her awakenings, her A1 increases her bomb damage by 50%. 50%. That's nuts. And then
no
on
joke.
top of that, she will also get longer freeze up times on her bombs as well with her awakenings. But even without them, she deals insane amounts of damage and she provides so much utility.
No,
She's end game viable. For people that have seen my video on her, I used her in stage 21. Damage wise, she can even keep up with someone like Vierna. Not with Comet, because Comet is unmatched, but damage wise, she's insane. She brings a lot of utility and she can be used gear rate 1 and also like Guild Wars, she shines and just really underrated for a long time.
for sure. Yeah, she was underrated. I think on my original tier list, I had her at like an A and like 2 pieces of content, but I put her at like a C plus. And I'll tell you right now, she would not be a C plus when I do my updated version coming out soon. She's going to be a lot higher. I think it's a really, really good take. I love what you did with her. I've been playing around with some similar stuff, and I will say, I know Faction Trials is not the sexiest content, but there might be not a single hero in the entire game who is better at their specific Faction Trials than I is good at her faction. She is S plus at stage 12 Esoterra's faction trials.
Yeah, she just puts up her traps and
It's
nukes
crazy.
everyone.
Yeah, I love Vi. She's really cool. I hate that she looks exactly like Hollow. It's one of the lazier
Yeah,
reskins I've seen in a while. But yeah, dude,
that's
I love
true.
her. I really like the list we have. Actually, I really think we hit a lot of things. People are gonna have to let us know if they think we missed anybody.
Yeah, I think there's a few good epics, but I think we covered the
Oh, you
like
know what?
best
Before people
ones.
yell at you,
Mhm.
one of the rules, guys, is no lords. Just to be clear.
Exactly. So no Ref, no Pyros.
Yeah, just so that's people don't wonder.
Mhm. All right, then I'd say let's wrap it up and make sure to, if you don't already follow Fastidious, make sure to check him out. He uploads daily content all about Watcher of Realms, from guides to summons to account takeovers. He's your guy for everything, basically. And other
Yeah.
than that, I'm Ronaldo. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll leave the last word to you, Fastidious.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And guys, we're gonna do the same thing with legendaries on my channel, so don't miss that. We're gonna hear some amazing opinions from Ronaldo as always. So I can't wait. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Thanks for being here. Have a good one.
Bye bye.
Peace.